really true that on your business card it says the Gun Rabbi?
Yes, it is really true. I have a business card that says the Gun Rabbi. It was a nickname given to me by a very good friend.
So how did you become involved and interested in becoming a firearms instructor?
Well, I decided to become an instructor following the Mumbai terrorist attacks in 2008. Just to refresh the memory of some of your listeners, 4 groups of terrorists descended on the city of Mumbai, and one of those groups went and attacked the synagogue there. They shot people in hotels. They wreaked whatever havoc they could, but they spent 25 of their forces going after a synagogue that you wouldn't even know was there. You're talking about an enormous, sprawling city and a teeny tiny synagogue in an unlabeled building. Mm-hmm. And that told me that the kind of terrorist attacks that previously were by and large limited to places like Israel were coming home here. And so I said someone needs to start sounding the alarm in Jewish communities and getting people aware that they can do something about this and get them thinking about it. And so that was when I decided to become an instructor.
Well, it seems to be working what you're doing, because I was reading where you said your mission is to get Jewish people to rethink their relationship with firearms. And as you said, in so many of those cases, defenseless people.
That's exactly right. Unfortunately, those who have chosen to disarm themselves face enemies who have chosen otherwise. And thank God I am getting Jews to rethink that. I'm getting a lot of Jews to scratch their heads and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, because when you look at history, that's not the way they see things.
I think people fail to look at history. I think that's really what it comes down to. Jews have spent the last several thousand years at the wrong end of the gun barrel, and so we have very, very bad associations with firearms and what they're used for, and we tend not to think of them as defensive weapons. And so I've been out to get Jews to rethink that, to take a look at it, take a look, for example, at the strange dichotomy. They look at the Israeli soldier who stands with pride in defense of his nation, and that stands in very much in contrast to the way most American Jews would relate to guns or to relate to the idea of defending themselves even.
When people show up to your classes, what do they say? What's the reason they're there?
Most of them are there. I get a variety of reactions. First, I often have people say something like, thank God I found a rabbi who can teach me this. I had, for example, an 80-plus-year-old Holocaust survivor who said to me at the end of the class, she said, I will no longer be afraid to be home alone in my apartment.
And that's really what it's all about. And again, you look at this whole debate there right now with guns in churches, and I'm sure that struck home for you too.
That very much strikes home for me, yes. The idea of making a church, a synagogue, a disarmament zone, a criminal safety zone is just an anathema to anyone who holds life dear, who loves life.
So you think the next debate's going to be about guns in synagogues?
That's a debate that's already happening. It's not happening in the public sphere, but it is very, very much happening in private conversations among rabbis, among synagogue leadership. I can tell you I was at, just last week, a meeting with presidents and rabbis from synagogues, Jewish community centers, and Jewish schools. The meeting was hosted by the Department of Homeland Security, the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, the New Jersey State Police, and several other organizations. And the message to us was that we are primary targets just like airports, and we need to be on the alert to deal with that. Now, unfortunately, in a state like New Jersey, that's about all they can tell us to do is be on the alert, because we have some of the most draconian gun measures in the country. But those meetings are happening in other places, and Jews are taking those messages very seriously.
I thought it was interesting because you did a lot of research on this, and you learned about the Jewish law and the message that's written in Jewish law, if any of them have doubts about what they can and can't do.
In fact, one of the first projects that I did in this, once I had educated myself, is I put out, with Jews for Preservation of Firearms Ownership, a DVD called The 10 Commandments of Self-Defense, in which I chose 18 of those sources from Jewish law to look at the obligation to defend and protect the innocent, and what are the implications thereon for a person who's capable of doing so. interestingly enough, I have asked repeatedly for people who think otherwise, for Jews who advocate an alternative idea as being a quote-unquote Jewish idea. I've asked repeatedly for them to show me the sources that contradict what I've taught, and no one has come forward.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because really when you get down to it, no matter your religion, self-defense, the ability to carry a firearm, the right, as you said, is so hard to practice in New Jersey and in New York. It's all about being able to protect yourself when it's most important, when 911 and the police can't get there.
Listen, this is a God-given right. This right predates the Constitution. It's a God-given right that is simply ratified, if you will, in the Bill of Rights. Unfortunately, I live in a state where we have politicians that think they can take that right away from us.
And I thought there was a really neat quote there from you. You said, your life is a gift from God, and if someone tries to take it away from you, you have an obligation to try to prevent that.
That is the way Jewish law sees the matter. Mm-hmm. That your life is precious and it's a gift, and you have to protect and preserve it.
So how many classes do you offer?
How many classes do I offer? Well, right now my phones are ringing off the hook with the good press coverage I've been getting.
Well, that's great. It's because it's important and people want to know, where can I go? How can I learn? And you've opened the door.
Yes, thank God I've opened the door. And these are people who, some of them have been asking for a while and have been afraid to reach out, and now have a place they can reach out to and feel comfortable. But by and large, the people who come to me have never held a gun in their hands in their lives. So they surprise even themselves by signing up for a class.
Yeah. Okay, so if people want to find out more about it, what do they need to do?
The easiest way to find me, and the most memorable, is simply go to gunrabbi.com.
Okay.
And gunrabbi.com, there are links there for the various productions I've been involved in, for Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, links there to classes, videos, educational material, you name it, you can find it there.
And it's fascinating because you've done so much. You've been in a documentary about all of this.
Right. We've got a documentary we produced called No Guns for Jews that looks at gun control as a tool of oppression of the Jewish people. You know, when the first recorded historical gun control measure was, I find that very few people are aware, but gun control goes back to biblical times. That's the first documented one anyway. It's in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 13, where we're told that there were no blacksmiths among the Jewish people, and the Philistines, their enemies, wouldn't teach them the art of smithing, nor would they sharpen metal tools for the Jews. So when it came time for war, there were exactly two Jews who were armed, Jonathan and Saul. No other Jews had arms because we had been disarmed by the Philistines in preparation for that war. So this is an enemy. This is a tool that's been used for oppression for thousands and thousands of years.